Now, we've been here before. Dark Angels, suddenly the best faction. But is it really true? So with the new data slate, a massive change happened for Dark Angels. Not only did the Lion get cheaper, but Company of Hunters gained two fantastic new stratagems, alongside Sammael getting a major boost, and the Ravenwing Command Squad getting the support keyword. Overall, these changes have been absolutely massive, and potentially Dark Angels might be the best faction in 40k right now. So pretty big changes, because it's felt a little bit doom and gloom for a while now, with Dark Angels getting a bit of an uptick as we moved into 11th edition, but now it really feels like we will come into our own. But I really wanted to ask the question and explain, is Company of Hunters hyped up, or is it the real deal? So what we're going to do by the end of this video is really understand where the strengths of Company Hunters lie, where the weaknesses are, how you can get some good combos going on, and what you need to do to get the most out of your new and improved Dark Angels. So let's dive in without a further ado. Here's a quick overview of what Company of Hunters does first. Now, everything gains assault and fallback and shoot. That is a really big major one, because if you've watched any of my other videos, you will know that in 11th edition, I believe fast gun is king. We need to be able to move around that board and make sure that we're getting lines on our opponent, using towing into ruins to shoot through them as efficiently as possible, really bullying our opponent with our gun line. So the faster the gun, the better. And that's what Company of Hunters really leans into. Now, alongside that, Ravenwing Mounted also gain advance, fallback, and charge as well. So that is a really very powerful set of abilities where they're not going to get locked in combat. They're able to move around the board very quickly. And then obviously, because they are Ravenwing, they already have a fast base movement. And that's what we're really looking for. Whatever we're doing, we're wanting to do it quickly. Critically, these rules allow us to be more brutal, more in our opponent's face, and more proactive, which allows us to really dictate the pace of the game. Now, another massive benefit to Company of Hunters is that every stratagem in there has a place and is pretty damn solid. The worst stratagem is being able to sticky an objective with a Ravenwing unit, which, let's be quite frank, is not a bad stratagem. Now, the two best ones, I personally believe, the ones that have just been introduced, which is Lance for any unit and then Advance and Charge for any unit as well. Those are massive, and I think that they really just round out Company of Hunters that little bit extra, giving something to Deathwing Knights, which I think is a critical boost, and also to the Lion, because the Lion with a Lance stratagem just becomes 10 times better, especially when he looks to kill some of those key larger targets. Now, the other strats still available are still very solid. We've got Armor of Contempt, which is really good now with the changes to cover. We've got -1 to hit on a Ravenwing unit. Again, something that is very powerful in conjunction with cover, effectively giving -2 to hit. And then alongside that, we've got a redeploy. Now, one of the most important things in 11th edition, as we've already covered, is speed. Redeploying a Ravenwing unit is essentially just additional speed. The only slight downside on that is that the land speeder vengeances, not land raider, land speeder vengeances don't have deep strike, which is a bit of a pain in the bum, but overall they are a strong set of stratagems. Now, they also bring along some decent enhancements. The all-star enhancement is, in fact, Recon Hunter. Now, what that does is it gives Scout 9 to a Ravenwing unit. That is probably the only one you're going to be selecting. You could take Hunter's Instincts, which gives you a turn 1 arrive from Ingress, which is pretty solid. But overall, I think that if you're going to take it, you're probably just taking Recon Hunter, because the other enhancements are not overly good. And to be perfectly honest, I think you just want more units in there. But overall, this definitely gets an S tier for what it does, alongside being 2 detachment points. And that's the really critical one, because this detachment is kind of held in check by the fact that it's disruption. And disruption is probably one of the weakest available dispositions. It's the one you're kind of scraping the barrel to fill in teams with your 5th player a lot of the time, which is a little bit disappointing, and hopefully it will receive some buffs in the meantime. However, when you're able to combo it with one of the other 1DP detachments, either in Space Marines or Dark Angels, you suddenly get a stronger disposition and combo well, because Company of Hunters has a good breadth of strength that it's giving to multiple different things. And in all honesty, I think just adding more rules to this already powerful detachment potentially is a little bit too much. We'll see how long this survives, but right now, Company of Hunters is truly exceptional for what it brings. Now, I want to take a little bit more time on why Company of Hunters, and particularly why it's so strong in 11th edition. Now, first and foremost, terrain and maps are a lot more open than they once were. The terrain sets that we were using previously often had really large walls, and also you had to be wholly within a terrain feature to shoot through them in 10th edition. This is obviously one of the bigger changes when it comes to 11th edition, with the unified terrain from Games Workshop, alongside the ability to tow into a ruin and shoot through. The great thing is fast gun. And what does Company of Hunters bring? Fast gun. It is truly the best way for Dark Angels players to get around the board, because you take our fastest units, 14-inch moving speeders, and then add advance to them, alongside take to the skies for a mere 2 inches reduction in movement. You can fly through those pesky walls and get into those positions that you need to be to really start punishing your opponent. Now, the Sammael unit is also an absolute Death Star. Now that it can be comboed with the Ravenwing Command Squad and Outriders, that unit is truly exceptional, bringing 12 damage, 3 attacks to combat, alongside... Is it 9? No, it's more than 9. It's so many plasma shots. No, it is 9 plasma shots. 9 plasma shots. I'm thinking of 18 the other way. So 9 plasma shots. Then Azrael, then Sammael's plasma cannon, and it really helps take out units both in shooting and in combat. And I think this unit really has the potential, especially now that it can add in that lance stratagem, allowing it to really bully opposing units and kind of go, well, I'm going to go so quickly and take out your key units so early that you are then going to start struggling. Now, with the Lion added into Company of Hunters, obviously he's not an immediate fit. He's not got an overly good gun, but with the change to the stratagems allowing him to have both lance and advance and charge, the Lion is back on the menu alongside his 20-point points drop. At 265, he is not too dissimilar to a Land Raider Redeemer. Obviously, the Land Raider Redeemer does a lot of damage in the shooting phase and provides an overwatch threat. However, the Lion provides far more survivability because of that 3-up invuln. It scams people like there's no tomorrow, and also it has a hilariously powerful damage output in combat, usually being able to take down things like Redeemers for fun. I've been really impressed with what the Lion is able to kill in 11th edition, and I think he's in a very strong position now that he's coming in at 265 points. That feels like an absolute bargain, and if you do play him correctly, you can actually get use out of his fights first. All you need to do is set up an efficient heroic intervention, because now that also gives your unit the benefit of fights first, allowing you to kind of force your opponent to pick between being hit by, say, the Lion or being hit by 6 ICCs and Azrael. And that is never a good choice, because you can scam your opponent on -1 to hit and 4-up invulnerable saves, or you can scam your opponent on -1 to wound and 3-up invulnerable saves. And then you're getting to hit them with one of those units. So you've just got to think about your positioning a little bit more, planning in where you're able to really deal with your opponent and trying to force them down into those little gullies by kind of funneling them with that nasty firepower to push them into positions that they don't want to be. And that is why Company of Hunters really lends itself, because you dictate where that contact point is going on. You are able to find where you need to hit your opponent, and you can hit them damn hard with this Company of Hunters list, because the speed is there, but also that combat threat. If you have a key unit that you need to kill on turn 1, Sammael's unit will do it. There is so much power in this unit. They have so much damage 3. They're able to kill basically any unit in the game, and they also have insane spike potential, because all Sammael needs to do is roll a couple of 6s with access to that fishing from Oath, and suddenly he has turning 6 attacks into 12 attacks. It is damn impressive, and I'm really excited to try and use Company of Hunters a little bit more. So you're probably thinking, what's the next question? And that is, what are the powerful combos that Company of Hunters kind of lends itself to? And that is both with what kind of dispositions it lends to and also the units that it has. Now, probably the strongest is Sammael, the Ravenwing Command Squad, and a squad of Outriders, as we've kind of already covered, especially if you add in Recon Hunter to give them that 9-inch scout on turn 0, I guess, and before they then suddenly go 12 plus advance with a +1 and then charge with +1 as well. It's very powerful, it's very fast, and they do provide one hell of a punch. So I've been really impressed with just how much they're doing at this point. There's very few things they won't just go, it's dead now. So really good little start for the Ravenwing. I think that is probably one of the best, if not the best. And it's also quite a low price point because Sammael and the Ravenwing Command Squad and even Outriders are actually just very cheap. I think the land speed of Vengeance with the enhancement to give it rerolls to hazardous and reroll number of shots alongside a Thunderstrike gives an absolute killing machine. You're able to deal with so many different tanks because usually their protection against a plasma bolt would be that it's wounding them on 5s. But actually with the Thunderstrike and Twin Linked, turning it to suddenly winning on 4s and re-rolling, you can get a hell of a lot of damage through because suddenly that 2-up armor save vehicle is saving on 5s. That 3-up armor save vehicle is saving on 6s. You can push a lot of damage through, and that critical weakness of failing hazardous on 1s and 2s and taking flat 3 and that d6 plus 1 number of shots is kind of helped out by the fact that you can give them this enhancement and deal with that very efficiently. Now, obviously, they did go up 10 points, but equally, I think that was deserved. And also, it makes it a massive pain in the bum on if you can kind of link these guys all up together. If your opponent kills one of them, you're able to shoot them back at full ballistic skill. Now, bringing in another potential option is Deathwing Knights with Librarians. They offer a really nasty potential rapid ingress threat. They bring that really brutal combat punch, but it's also the survivability. I think that people are not overly prepared for -1 damage in this new edition. I think there's a decent amount of 3 damage going about, but in all honesty, it tends to be autocannons, which is very poor at killing Deathwing Knights because it's either pushing them up to a 3 or you're able on their save, or you're able to AOC it and you're saving them on 2s again. So overall, I think that, permanent, essentially permanent, as long as you don't shoot the Librarian, permanent hidden if they're in terrain features really helps Deathwing Knights kind of with that survivability. Now, you definitely do need to rapid ingress them, and you will probably have to spend the Company of Hunters strat to advance and charge on them, but overall, they're a really nice little unit that can benefit you in the long run. Now, talking of combos, this brings us into a really natural conversation about what other disposition and what detachment to pair alongside Company of Hunters. Now, to be honest, the most important thing is that disposition. I don't think you want to be playing this in disruption if you can avoid it. It's obviously actually quite a good option for teams maybe, but it will limit your scoring potential in my opinion. So I think Dark Flight is probably the most natural option. Being able to give those Ravenwing Vengeances that reroll hits, reroll number of shots and reroll hazardous, I think is really powerful alongside that ability to ignore cover. It means that you're a little bit more reliable not shooting at oath targets, which I think is quite a helpful one because those land speed of Vengeances do tend to be oath hogs otherwise, but being able to just ignore cover is very useful. And I think a lot of people are leaning into that -1 to hit. So being able to ignore that is very useful. I think Dark Flight is probably one of the best in terms of supporting the gun line. So if you are looking for a more shooty version of the Company of Hunters list, then Dark Flight is probably the better option for you. Now, Librarius does offer some different options alongside, while critically also offering you Recon as a disposition, which I think is the natural home for Company of Hunters. And Librarius brings a little bit more punch to it as well, because you can bring Celerity Deathwing Knights, which gives them advance and charge. You can bring Temporal Corridor units as well. And overall, Librarians are just solid all round. I've been really impressed with Librarius in general. I think from playing the Salamanders version, it's very good. Temporal Corridor only going up 10 points, but becoming a far better enhancement, I think, is very impressive. And to be perfectly honest, Fusillade is not dead either. It's, it's still very, very good. It's not doing the Sternguard trick anymore, which is probably better for the health of the game, but equally it's still providing nasty damage output, especially with lethal sustained. Now, I think also there is some source around the plasma detachment. There could be something there. LSVs turning into strength 10 is particularly nice. All of those Ravenwing Black Knights turning into strength 9 as well. There is some potential there, particularly if they are going into those sort of lighter medium tanks as well. But overall, I think that Darkflight is probably still the best one, because land speed of vengeances, I think, are the beating heart of this army at this point, unless you want to dramatically change the way that it makes itself move forward and punish our opponent. So I think Darkflight gives you those enhancements and allows you to really make the most out of those land speed of vengeances. So if you're improving that, I think that's overall good, alongside bringing really powerful stuff to it, being able to give stealth to a Ravenwing fly unit, being able to give a reactive move of D3+3 after they get shot, particularly good with Sammael's unit, that. And then, of course, you do also have an additional redeploy, which is pretty useful as well, to be able to just go, okay, we're going to make sure that we get all of our speeders in the right spot and hit our opponent as hard as we can. And particularly, that's going to be more relevant as you play recon, because you want to be able to make sure to drop your units in those key spots all around the board. So I think disposition is probably the most important part of this, and things like priority assets from Plasma is solid, but overall I think Recon is probably the best home for Company of Hunters. So in the last video I couldn't actually provide you with a list because the WTC deadline was coming up, but now that that has hopefully passed, I will be able to provide you with this list. And I think this is a slight adaptation from Josh Roberts' list at the Battle of the East. Now, personally, my only change here is taking out the squad of intercessors and adding in the eradicators with heavy bolters. And I think that's just because I'm expecting a lot of marine equivalents to come running at me. And these eradicators are damn good at killing those. So we've got the Lion for that kind of distraction, push up the middle, combat threat, distraction kind effects. The Death Squad itself, Sammael, three Ravenwing Command Squad blokes, the Outriders, and Recon Hunter enhancement, so they can, turn one, just go and kill your opponent as if it was nothing. They're pretty damn good at that as well. We've got Azrael and 6 ICC. Now, obviously, these guys took a slight rules nerf going from flat -1 to hit to stealth and then -1 to hit in combat, but equally, they're still damn good, and especially with access to a lance strat and getting lethal sustained on those 2 damage attacks, they're very, very powerful. And I've been impressed with their 2 OC as well, just for making sure that they're securing up those objectives, competing with our opponents in those key areas, and ensuring that we're scoring. I think, that's very important for things like Recon, just to make sure that they've got that expansion objective. They're scoring those 4 points a turn minimum on their primary and really bullying up our opponent. We got 3 upgraded land speed of vengeances because they are just incredible. I've waxed lyrical about these guys already. You just kind of need to play them to see just how powerful their punches. Now, they do have the potential to swing down if you roll poorly twice in a row with the number of shots, but equally, that just happens. That is a dice game. This list is not infallible. You do have to accept that part of it. Overall, for their points cost, they are well worth it. To support them, we've got a Thunderstrike in there as well, because I think that +1 to wound is what really makes the land speed of vengeances tick into those tanks. Next, we've got a squad of Ravenwing Black Knights. They're 75 points for a 5-up invuln and lots of plasma shots, alongside that ability to do some dev wounds to vehicles in combat, or just kill skirmish units with their little whacks. They're not bad at all, and for 75 points with all the buffs that they get from both Company of Hunters and some of the other rules that they can kind of abuse, I think they're pretty damn useful for 75 points, especially bringing in that invuln, which oftentimes we are just lacking. Then we've got the eradicators with heavy bolters, killing off those marine equivalents as quickly as possible, and also pumping shots into big blobs of things like orcs. They're really happy just kind of mowing down infantry, and I've been impressed with them so far. They just add a little bit of extra chaff clearance as well for a unit that we don't really care about losing, and the big downside of them is their speed, but we bring in the fact that they can advance and shoot because they're in Company of Hunters, and they're very happy boys. Next, we've got 2 land speeders. Now, again, land speeders being able to ignore cover because of dark flight, and then also having just really solid guns across the board. I've been very impressed with the kind of firepower they bring out, and then the speed alongside that move, shoot, move can really cause a lot of trouble for our opponents. And then finally, we've got 2 scouts, one of which is going to clear the way for Sammael's scout and move forward so that he can get the maximum damage in that early game. The other one is going to hold our home objective, waiting to uppy downy to then go and cause havoc in our opponent's backfield and score some of those critical points that Recon likes to get in that late game after we bullied most of our opponent off the board. So that's the list. It is one of the most powerful lists I've played in 11th edition so far. I don't know if it quite rivals the Salamanders list, but obviously that was nerfed out of the game for a very good reason. So we will see if this is good enough as well. But overall, thoroughly impressed. I have been loving it, and I cannot wait to share more experiences of playing this list with you going forward. Now, I think that Dark Angels are going to probably be one of the best factions for a while, and I cannot wait to start grinding more and more and more, especially once the WTC is finished. Hopefully they will survive the next slate, not, mostly intact, and then we will be very happy moving forward. If you do want to learn more about how you can play Dark Angels, make sure you go and check out my website. It's Tactical Rock 40k, and you can book yourself some coaching. I do lots of different packages, all for supporting different levels of ability, and making sure that you're getting the most out of your hobby. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot more videos coming, a lot more lists, and some more spicy content related to the WTC as we go through that experience. We can share that together. So make sure that if you aren't already, hit the subscribe button and follow along for this journey, because I think it's going to be an exciting one. Now, most importantly, remember, stay loyal, brothers, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.